I cannot tell you how long it's been since I sat down with a camera where I couldn't see what I was recording, like all the way back at uni. So this might be a mess. I apologise. Hi, I'm Lauren, welcome to Cook's Books. It's been a hot minute since I sat down and did a video that wasn't a vlog that never ended up seeing the light of day. So I thought, to get back into it, smooth, easy, I would do something a little bit different. It was popular a couple of months ago on BookTube, and it was tier ranking various books, like fantasy series, YA series, authors, and I thought it was a really fun thing to do, but I didn't have the technological ability to take part. I watched a couple of YouTube videos on how to do it, and how to do a split screen, so I'm filming this. It might also be relegated to the bin, because I'm filming it on a potato. My phone broke, and I'm now on an old phone while I wait for it to be repaired. There's a lot of things going on. It's very on brand for me to make a BookTube comeback with no filming equipment, no technological capabilities, no ideas, no reading. Anyway, welcome back to the channel. I hope you've been well. Let's talk about some books. So this particular tier ranking we're going to be doing today is ranking the books I read at secondary school. For a little bit more flavour of secondary school Lauren, let's have a look at some photos of me in year 7, 8, 9, 10 and 11. Maybe I'll throw one in for sixth form for a little bit of extra spice. Was a nerd. Was a big nerd. Didn't have any friends until year 9. That was fun. Had life-changing trauma in year 10. Was sad until very recently. Just generally a mess who escaped her real life by reading some books. So the fact that we were reading books at all in English was something I adored. Like, I loved reading books in English. I loved getting assigned reading. But I had a lot of opinions. So let's look at the ranking scale. So what we have here on my iPad, hopefully covering up this less aesthetic bookshelf for you, is our ranking table. So it has 5 categories. So right up the top there we've got It Made Me the Mess That I Am. So these are books that were formative to teenage Lauren. The reason she was just an arse that no one wanted to talk to, why she was so pretentious. It's going to explain a lot about me. Then we've got It's Canon for a Reason. So it was really, really good. I wouldn't class it as one of my favourites, but it had a lot of technical merit, and I could see why it was important for us to learn about those books. At number 3 is At Least It Wasn't To Kill a Mockingbird, because my god, I have issues with that book. So, you know, it wasn't great, but it's not the worst thing I've ever read. Then Male, Pale and Stale. These are the books that you kind of read because you have to. Like, in no world would you have picked up this book to read on your own. It's white, it's a classic, and it's just boring. It's not what you're into. And finally, we've got What the Fuck Was AQA Thinking? If you are a non-Brit, let me lay something down for you. So we have lots of different exam boards in the UK, and depending on which exam board your school is like signed up to, changes your curriculum and your exam. So most of my exams were an exam board called AQA, who were the devil incarnate, and they would like change the curriculum at the last minute and do loads of weird stuff. But the books and the things they picked, some of them were dry. Like, so this is for just what was the exam board thinking when they asked a 15-year-old to read this book? What did they really think child me could glean from these literary masterpieces? So there are 18 books at the bottom here. We have the AQA Poetry Anthology. I specifically put the anthology here because I wanted to talk about a poem called Gujerati, and I cannot find a cover just for that poem anywhere else. We have The Collector by John Fowles, which is a novel, 1984, and Animal Farm by George Orwell. Then we have Macbeth, To Kill a Mockingbird, The Foreshadowing by Marcus Sedgwick, Goblin Market and Other Poems by Christina Rosetti there. The one I want to talk about is My Cousin Kate. A Midsummer Night's Dream, Tess of the D'Urbervilles, Pride and Prejudice, Romeo and Juliet, Far from the Madding Crowd, Of Mice and Men, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, The Great Gatsby, The Catcher in the Rye. We have an Emily Dickinson collection there, but it's Death Would Not Stop for Me I want to talk about. The first pile is books that I was actually assigned to read in my own class. So, let's start with Animal Farm by George Orwell. I have a really clear memory of reading this book. I had to read it in year 9. I was on a little yacht in the Lake District and my dad put his head in the cabin. He was like, "Oh, what you reading?" I was like, "Animal Farm." He's like, "Oh, is it about cows?" He was really excited. And I was like, "No, Dad, don't be so embarrassing. It's a metaphor for the Russian Revolution." He was like, "Oh, okay." So, it is the reason I am a raging socialist these days. So it did make me the mess I am. Next, we have Macbeth by Willie Shakespeare. Do you think he likes being called Willie? I once met someone at uni who called him Our Bill. Like he was a cousin of theirs or something. It was awful. I hated it and I never spoke to her again. I read Macbeth the first time in year 8 in English. Loved it. I thought it was the cleverest plot twist I had ever experienced in my life. That A, the woods walked to Macbeth, and B, he was not born of woman. Very creepy. Love the witches. There was actually a field next to my school, like on the way to school, with 3 really old Shetland ponies living in it. And they had this massive, like, vat of straw and hay, and they would gather round it to eat from this massive, what looked like a cauldron. And every day, from the day I read this in year 8 to the last day of school, every time we drove past it on the school bus, I would lean across and my friend would just be like, "This has been happening for 600 days in a row, it's not going to happen again." And I'd be like, "When shall we 3 meet again? In thunder, lightning, or in rain? When the battle's lost and won? When the hurly-burly's done?" I would get so hyped, so into it. I got bullied on the bus a lot. It's suddenly making a lot more sense. Again, straight off the bat, boop-a-doop-a-doop, it made me the mess I am. The Foreshadowing by Marcus Sedgwick. This is not the cover that we read. Our cover was like a raven or a crow. I can never really tell the difference. But like just this much of it. Like just an eye. Like essentially it was about a family at the start of World War I where there were 2 sons and a daughter, and the sons signed up to go and fight in the war. I think the eldest son died straight away, but the daughter kind of had a premonition about it but thought it was just a nightmare, so didn't really do anything about it. And then the middle brother, she had another dream about him dying, and the brother had died in the exact way she'd had this dream, so she realised she had these premonitions and that this time she could save her favourite brother. So she signed up to become a nurse and go to the front. And like, it was mad. I think she ended up shooting him so he wouldn't go into battle that day. So he got blighted back home. And this was the first time I ever spoiled a book for anyone. But like, it was a really short book and I was like into it. So one day I went home and I just read the whole thing. I came in, told the teacher that I'd read the whole thing, expecting to get praised because I was a swot. Got told off for reading a book I was set to read. So then, because I was in a huff, because I'd been told off, I don't deal well with authority, I normally just cry. Don't know how I got this rebellious on this day. I just very loudly told the girl who sat next to me everything that happened for the rest of the book. Everyone in the classroom went mental, and I got sent out. I think there was only like 3 times in my life I got sent out of the classroom at school. That was one of them. Obviously it was traumatic, because I'm apparently crying. But was it formative? Is it a part of who I am as a person? No, I don't think it was. I think canon for a reason. I think that's where we'll put that one. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. My memory of reading this is lying on the back lawn in the garden in the summer between year 9 and year 10, and I just got drawn into this twice-told tale kind of setup, which I'm actually quite picky about in books I've found since then. And I was lying in the Belton sun with my pet rabbit, like, hopping around me. He was very territorial. He was a bit of a bastard. And he kept biting the top of the book to try and pull it out of my hands. And I've still got that edition at home, and you can see the tiny little teeth marks in the pages still. But yeah, it was very at odds with this, like, spooky, late autumn, London fog kind of vibe that was just in the one sunny day the North East had to offer, living my best life. And you know what? I was really captured by this image of the duality of man, that we all have the capability within us for extreme good and extreme evil. And I think it made me think a lot about morality. And, like, at the age of, 13, 14? That wasn't something that was on my mind a lot. So I'm going to put that in formative. It made me the mess I am. I'm surprised there's that many in there already, actually. Controversial. A Midsummer Night's Dream. It's one of my favourite Shakespeares to watch because there is always such a high production value because everyone knows it's one of the most famous ones. So it almost feels like they try and really go out of the box to stage it in unique ways. It's not one of my favourite Shakespeares. Don't particularly like the fairies. Don't like the fact that an idiot got made into a donkey. It actually makes me really sad, the way Bottom is treated in this play. I don't like Oberon's rapey... So, I think I'm going to put this in At Least It Wasn't To Kill a Mockingbird, because I appreciate it as, like, a form of entertainment, to, like, just consume visually, but to read wasn't my bag. Romeo and Juliet, because you know what? Canon for a reason. I know in the past couple of years, lots of people, myself included, have been saying it's not a romance, it's a tragedy. Like, it's just two kids who get, like, 5 people killed because they want to have sex. And, like, that's true. That's very true. But that doesn't mean it's not good. That doesn't mean it's not an absolute bop. Like, again, I had no life. So I had the opening stanza, the opening sonnet, off by heart. It was kind of like one of my party skills. Are you surprised I didn't get invited to parties? I'll just blast out those 14 lines, like, didn't make me who I am, but it absolutely slapped. Cousin Kate by Christina Rosetti, much less famous than another Rosetti poem, The Goblin Market. In my opinion, far superior. Absolutely slaps. It's got this beautiful rhyme and couplet kind of structure, and it is from the point of view of a lass who has been slighted by the landowner who she works for. So basically, he saw her in the fields, he was like, that's nice, and she was like, don't mind if I do. He got a bit jiggy in the corn. 9 months later, she's in a field recounting her sorrows because the landowner kind of used her, left her, got with her cousin Kate, married that bitch, took her on high from the peasantry, so it wasn't even that our narrator was too poor to be with him, because he took a cousin. So, like, he wasn't opposed to marrying a commoner, but he slighted her in particular. But the T is, sis, the cousin can't have a baby. She's barren, is what that says, which is actually really sad. But it's such a vindictive, pained poem that I'm like, yeah, babe, go off. So our narrator is kind of going on about how she was lied to and how she's been betrayed by her family. She comes through at the end. She starts talking about a baby she's had, who is the child of this man. He's had a baby with our narrator, but he can't get his new wife pregnant. And she's like, you know what? Git, look what I've got. I've got you one. I've got a baby. I've got the heir that you could have given all of your lands to. You could have had a perfect family. Now, you've got a husk. You've got my vain, treacherous cousin, whose barbed womb will not bear you fruit. I am shamed, cast out of society, but at least I've got our beautiful son. Honestly, the pettiness in me was just like, yes, bitch, go. Canon for a reason, or it made me the mess that I am. It slapped. I loved it so much. I don't think it's had an impact on me in a formative sense. or my writing, or my reading. So for that, I will put it in canon for a reason. If someone in the Drag Race Untucked Lounge started spitting it, no one would bat an eyelid. The shade noise would be going as she finishes that off. Honestly, chef's kiss. That might be the only chef's kiss we get this video, if I haven't already given any. But popped off. I need to calm down. Death would not stop for me. I'm going to put that straight up in At Least It Wasn't To Kill a Mockingbird. I went through a phase of really loving Emily Dickinson. I think I like the imagery of the horse more than anything else, to be honest. I thought I would have more to say about that, but I really don't. It was very like, yeah, At Least It Wasn't To Kill a Mockingbird. Gujerati, and I am kicking myself that I cannot remember the author's name, so I will put it somewhere. It is all about a young girl who immigrates to England and kind of has to assimilate those two cultures and step between the two cultures of home and school. And it also talks about language in such detail. She then likened Gujerati to a plant, something really beautiful and natural, but something that had thorns that could use its roots to grow stronger and burst from the earth, and kind of, it got quite violent again. It started to like throttle English and like take its place as her most used language. Did it change me as a person? Probably not. I think we'll go with canon for a reason. So these were all the books that I could remember having read at school. The wild thing about secondary school in England, you can read the same book year on year on year, and someone in the other class is doing loads of different books that you never get to read. These are all the books that my classmates read as assigned reading that I was never assigned, but I then went and read for fun anyway, so I can give my opinions on them. The first one of these is The Collector by John Fowles. Woo! This is the story of a boy who, now we would understand, has a very severe case of ASD or an attachment disorder. There's definitely some kind of theory of mind development that hasn't happened for him, and he's become fixated on this girl that he sees who goes to a local college. Basically, he fits out his basement to like keep someone alive, and he kidnaps her and he keeps her there. But you almost see this girl's Stockholm syndrome as she starts to realise that he doesn't fully understand what he's done, and it's really upsetting because you can feel yourself starting to sympathise with this man, which is horrendous, because now, as a modern reader, knowing what we know about developmental disorders, it's really hard to hold him accountable for what he's done. But it was like the most powerful thing I'd ever read, and I was 16, and I was like, oh, and I think it might have actually been like the first grown-up, like adult book I'd ever read because I wanted to. Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, made me the mess I am. 1984. This book was just shit. Like, I don't understand how anyone can sit there, like, look me in the eye and genuinely say 1984 is my favourite book. I really enjoyed it when I read 1984. You're a liar. You're a pretentious, performative liar. It's just, I think it took me like a year to read. It's awful. The main character, whose name I can't even remember, is just repulsive. I understand that he's supposed to be, but like, he's supposed to be because he's fat and old, and obviously that's not why he's actually repulsive. It's because he's a rapist. Because all he can think about is raping a woman who has ignored him, and then somehow he gets in a relationship with her. And yes, there's a general discomfort because it's dystopian. I'm aware of that. I can kind of separate all these things out in my mind. It's incredible, I know. Literally the only good thing to come out of that book, a review that me and my partner Jessie made before we were together. Looking back at it, it's so obvious we liked each other. For that, I thought it would be real funny if we got drunk on gin, and I made a fake label for the gin bottle that said Victory Gin, and we were like having gin and talking about the book. And like, I love that video because it's like that little moment of us just before we were together, because I am genuinely proud of that video. I think it's really funny. I think it's mess, but I love it. What I don't like is that I gave it a very positive review because I felt like I had to give it a positive review because it's 1984. So basically, I was lying through my teeth about the book. And also because I knew that Jessie really enjoyed the book, and I was a bit like, yeah, me too. But hey, it's 4 years later and we're still together, so maybe lying about a couple of books. It wasn't the worst thing I could have done. So you know what? A bold move. It's going in male, pale, and stale. To Kill a Mockingbird. You can tell because, you know, my benchmark for is a book bearable or not is, well, it wasn't To Kill a Mockingbird. I hated To Kill a Mockingbird. I think it tells a really important story about race in a particular area of America at a particular time. But also, it's not an honest perspective of that time. It's a white saviour novel. I'm not going to give a white saviour novel my time of day. Feel for this white girl and her kind white family. At least they're not racist like everybody else. When they're quite poor, they only have one maid. Feel sorry for them. No, I'm not going to feel sorry for the white man and his kids. Absolutely not. This is a bold statement. I hate American literature. I just hate it, especially like modern classics. Well, really, classics and modern classics. Anything before 30 years ago, if it was American, there's a strong chance I'm not going to like it. I just think the values are too disparate from my own, with not enough of an excuse to have those values. I just think it's naive and ideological, and I can't stand it. Was it male, pale and stale, or was it, what was the AQA thinking? I'm going to put it in male, pale and stale, because I understand why it's important. They, in a performative way, needed to have something about race on their curriculum. So I understand what they were thinking. And really, if you're an exam board, what other book would you pick off the top of your head without doing any research? And I think if you are in this era of Black Lives Matter holding up To Kill a Mockingbird in your halls, lazy. Tess of the D'Urbervilles. It was boring. It was really boring. I felt uncomfortable about the narrator's snobbishness, which is just Hardy. It's not like we've got a third person narrator. It's literally just Hardy and his classism, and his idealised version of Little England. And again, English pastoral novels, not a big fan of. Yeah, if you want to have stories about white poor people, there's more interesting stories about white poor people from that era. So it's going in, what was AQA thinking? Like, I don't understand why that drab thing was picked. Like, do you want children to hate reading? Do you want a child to never pick up a book ever again? Make a 14-year-old read Tess of the D'Urbervilles. Like, it sounds insane. Why would you do that? Pride and Prejudice. Pride and Prejudice. I don't think it's the greatest thing ever written, but you know what it is? It's fun, it's soothing, it's about kind of like lower middle class women. And it's written by a woman. It is so insightful, so fun. It slaps. It slaps. It do be like that. It had to do it to him. And I know everyone on BookTube kind of, every time they have to talk about a classic, they panic and they hold up Pride and Prejudice. I just think it's so entertaining, and it doesn't have to be of like the highest literary value, but it's not of the highest literary value because it was written by a woman and because society panned it off. So that's why there's this apologist streak every time you talk about Pride and Prejudice, to be like, haha, Pride and Prejudice, but I like it. No, it's a good damn book. Say what you want. But I do think it is the benchmark of romance in this world. Is it formative though? I don't think it is. I think it's canon for a reason. Far from the Madding Crowd, also by Thomas Hardy. Better than Tess of the D'Urbervilles, but does it deserve all the hype it gets? No. It's essentially a story about a man and his sheep. I think he kills a dog at one point as well, which isn't on. He has a farm, she's poor as out, and he wants to get with her and she's like, I'm too poor for you. And he's like, aye, that's sound, that's a good excuse, that is. Also, her name is Bathsheba. Bathsheba? That's insane! You can't tell me that was a common name. I refuse to believe it. That's mental. Who carries a child in their womb for 9 months before painkillers were invented, gives birth without an epidural, looks down at it and goes, ah, my darling Bathsheba, Like, that's child abuse. I would happily be an orphan if I was called Bathsheba, because I wouldn't want to look at whoever gave me that name every day. Christ. And moves away, and then he becomes really, really super poor, and he has to walk the country to find work, and he starts working on this farm with a mistress of the farm, which is scandalo. And it's so obvious it's Bathsheba. Like, it's so painfully obvious it's her. And then one day she comes out of the house and it's like, oh, it's Bathsheba. And then there's some more stuff about sheep. And then she like says she's going to marry this other random man. And then he shoots him. It's just like, oh. And like someone gets shot and it's boring. Male, pale and stale. Oh, Mice and Men. Okay. Mice and Men was one that I actually got taught. Forgot to put it in earlier. As the rest of these are American modern classics. That's controversial because I'll tell you for why. Of Mice and Men is a staple for British GCSEs, for British exams. It's like the first one you think of when you think about what you studied in school. So it's controversial that I put it in what was the exam board thinking. But like, if the aim of an English Lit qualification is to show that you are able to kind of intuit and read between the lines and infer, then what is the point of setting a text that is about as subtle as a sledgehammer? The river of loneliness in the valley of loneliness in the region of loneliness in America. Let's just stop. What do we think Steinbeck could be trying to tell us about the characters that live here? What is he trying to tell us about the landscape? I can't figure it out. It's beyond me. There is no nuance in this story. It tries to make you think there is by making you feel sad. I'm going to give it the same review I gave The Joker. I'm sorry, incels. Making something relentlessly sad does not make it profound. So we all know that George has to shoot Lenny. Lenny's a fucking murderer. And it was like such a prevalent thing. He had to keep his hands soft for his wife. Disgusting that a teacher had to stand at the front of a room of minors. Like, children, not like... My English teacher looked like she wanted to die. She was like, you all get it, don't you? Like, don't make me explain this to you. And everyone was like, yes, miss. And I was sat there just like, it doesn't sound very practical. Having a glove full of Vaseline, like your hands would be getting slippy. You wouldn't be able to do any farming. And I understand that, you know, we've got to talk about challenging things in an English lesson, but, like, I just think that's a bit too far. And there we were talking about fingering. Great Gatsby, because it is Jessie's favourite book. Read it, and hated it. Just, again, wasn't subtle enough for me. I felt like I was being smacked with a sledgehammer. Oh, and we were boats borne ceaselessly back against the current, and, the green light. So self-serving. If you do a queer reading or a race-informed reading, it becomes much more interesting because it needs something. It needs something to make it bearable. So if you think that the narrator is gay, you're like, I will try my hardest to relate to you because you are so bland of a human being that I don't care what's happening in your life. I don't care that these insane parties are going on next door. Don't care if he's got tap dancing hippos going on next door, wearing little tutus with little cigars, and I don't know, like a party hat and a brrrr out the end of the cigar. I don't care, because you are so boring of a person. You're obviously so much of a self-insert for Fitzgerald at this point that I can't even bear to listen to a word that comes out of your mouth. I think it's going to go in male, pale and stale, because, like, I completely understand that, like, boring white people would pick this book because they think it's like glamorous and American. Ugh. Catcher in the Rye. I actually read this in about the second year of my undergrad because my friend Rachel, it's her favourite book and I wanted to impress her. So I was like, I'm gonna read The Catcher in the Rye. Boring. And everyone's like, with the symbolism. It's like, yes, would you like a medal? Would you like a medal for realising that Holden Caulfield is a hypocrite? That he is repressing his emotions? Love reading slurs. Love reading racial and homophobic slurs. Honestly, I can't quite get enough of it in substandard books that are only famous because they are old. Because they are written by men. And oh my god, when... You know what? I love to hate it when authors use a line from the book as the title of the book. Like, every time it happened in Twilight. Every single time she worked in the title of the book, I was like, it's shit. But I'm like, oh, I see what you did. When I realised that Catcher in the Rye was actually going to be a line in this book was about 7 pages before it happened, because everything that was happening seemed to take a ridiculously, exorbitantly long time to actually happen. So you understood what was going to happen about 4 years before it actually did. I think this book is what made me a psychic. And, like, because they were in a field of rye, and children were jumping off the cliff, hidden by the rye in the field, and he was trying to catch them. And dead ass Holden Caulfield was like, I became the catcher in the rye. As if it was going to be something really profound. Honey, I am sorry that Salinger did that to you. I'm sorry that Salinger has done that to all of us. Needless to say, that is going male, pale and stale. I think the most surprising thing about this video is that, like, the biggest category is me agreeing that these books are important books. Like, I thought I was just going to rage and trash all of them. But actually, I've enjoyed quite a few of them. I really enjoyed my reading at school. I enjoyed the fact that I could rag about the books when I felt confident enough to. Don't like that I felt the pressure to, like, lie about some of them. That's uncomfortable. But I think I've grown in confidence enough now, and also just, like, I don't really care anymore. So I do feel like it's a lot easier to actually talk about honest opinions, and I think that's just a natural thing that comes with age, because I recently turned 24. That's 24 in British Sign Language. Ugh, I am old. I'm tired. I've got some reading to do. So I'd be really interested to know, especially if you are not English, what you were made to read at school, or even if you are English and it was like different stuff. I think it's really interesting how much the curriculum varies from school to school, country to country, city to city. Let me know what your favourite thing was that you read in secondary or high school. Maybe, just maybe, I'll do another one of these soon, because it was actually loads of fun. So I will see you later. Bye!